So where are we with the Sheffield United takeover? It seems to have been a long drawn out process, a lot of which has been carried out in the newspapers. First and foremost, we need to make it clear that Sheffield United themselves have not actually made any statement about a proposed takeover, not from the start to now, which is probably over 5 or 6 months. But football being as it is, we all know that there is a takeover taking place, and the prospective buyer, Edozie Mbosi, has made his position clear and appeared on TV. So we're safe in the knowledge that there is a proposed takeover. Unlike other industries, the issue here in football is the buyer and seller can agree the position and they can agree the funds. Sheffield United were approached back in the autumn. A deal was effectively agreed in outline. The buyer had to prove his funds, which he did using quite a high-profile city law firm. And so far, so good. A price for the club was agreed, which is north of 100 million. And you, in a normal industry, you would just review the books and complete. Where we are now, though, there's always in football, there's always a third party to this, and that's the English Football League. Every football club has a golden share in the league, and they have to agree to transfer that golden share from the current owner to a prospective new owner. And therein lies a process where the buyer has to subject themselves to tests from the EFL for them to undertake that transfer. Unique, I would have thought, compared to other industries. And this is where the delay seems to have appeared. I think that Dozie completed his review of the books by late January. And like I say, the club had reassurance that he had the funds to complete the deal. But the EFL have basically three tests. One is to say, is the buyer a fit and proper person to own a football club? So that will look at their past history, what industries they've been in, whether they pay their debts, whether they've had any bad publicity or anything like that, which we understand that the buyer has passed now. The second one is, can they afford it? And by afford it, the Football League look beyond actual purchase price, but also can they sustain the club? There's a lot of money in football, and unfortunately, if you don't find the success that you hope for, most football clubs rely on owner injections of funds to get them through. So the EFL really are looking at the purchase price, but also looking at significant funds needed to keep the club going for at least 2 to 3 years, which is the timescale that they consider. And it appears to be in this area that the takeover has stalled. Because of Dozie's background being in Nigeria, where often accounts and trading and probably not as transparent in northern European countries, there's clearly been a bit of difficulty auditing this situation. And Dozie has clearly tried to address that by having his main trading company audited by Deloitte, a worldwide known accountancy firm. But this is where we seem to be. So there seems to be, I think everyone seems to feel that the money is there to complete the deal. I don't think Sheffield United would have agreed the deal without that evidence. But can Dozie sustain the club for 2 to 3 years? The third test the EFL apply is where the funds come from. Obvious in terms of probably a lot of businesses, anti-money laundering processors. So obviously with big numbers like this, we're probably looking at 100 million to buy the club and 100 million to satisfy the EFL that the club can be run for 2 or 3 years afterwards. And so the source of the funds is important. He needs to know if it's coming from loans, if it's going to be geared up against shares from other companies. Will that be guaranteed? Will dividends from other companies be guaranteed? And can the initial funds more than just be sat in a bank account but be traced back to where they came from? So there's nothing unique about this deal. I think the only problem, particularly with this deal, Sheffield United have just come from through a process where they've been in the Premier League. There's a system of parachute payments post Premier League, and it means that the income has been artificially high. If Sheffield United don't get back to the Premier League, there's going to be a big drop-off in income, and the current wage bill won't be sustainable. And then, like I say, the onus would then be on the new owner to fund that difference. And I think it's that gap that is causing the problems. As it turns out, Sheffield United could actually, with the following win, be promoted by the end of this month. And that would actually take a lot of the pressure off the sustainability argument, because Sheffield United would then be in for a windfall of future Premier League money and the backstop of parachute payments if they were then relegated, which would typically mean that a club in that situation doesn't need owner funding. So we'll probably see a lot of movement not only on the pitch but off the pitch as well over this next month or so. So that's where we're at, and hopefully we'll come to a conclusion pretty shortly.